everybody. Tim and Mike here. We are excited to continue our conversation in the Sermon on the Mount. We are not excited that the topic today strikes a little too close to home. And so we're both feeling kind of heavy about it, just because I think we could spend the whole, or at least I could spend, I shouldn't speak for Timothy, I could spend the whole hour just sort of confessing. This is an issue that got in early in my life and has stayed. And man, I certainly do not come at this as someone who has it all figured out. And so I think we're gonna just go right to the text. We're gonna walk through the text, and then we're gonna consider some implications. But this is one of those teachings that isn't super hard to understand. It's that's the problem.
Not super hard to understand, but not talked about a whole lot.
Yes. So, we have a text reader today, and he's gonna plow through the text for us, and then we'll join you in just a second.
You have heard that it was said, "You shall not commit adultery." But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to go into hell.
The voice of an angel. That's our friend Brandon. And so thank you for that. So yeah, this one, remember what Jesus is doing is, he is not abolishing the law and the prophets. He is showing their and revealing their and embodying their true meaning. He is walking, talking Torah. He is reminding us that the least and the lightest commands are seen to be equivalent to the heavy commands in the Torah. So he's showing us a method of interpretation, and he is undercutting the whole Pharisaical project of righteousness and how they understood righteousness and how they emphasized it. And so he's doing just a whole heck of a lot. We looked last episode at least the one we did on Sermon on the Mount, on anger, and no relevance there. This one's on lust, so no relevance here either. So he starts in verse 27, "You've heard it said, you shall not commit adultery." That, of course, is one of the 10 commandments. And adultery, back in the day, there was a double standard about it, in the sense that adultery was considered sexual relations between a married or a betrothed woman and a man other than her husband or betrothed. All right? Infidelity today is, or adultery today is infidelity by either spouse. But back then, a man could have sexual relations with someone who was divorced, someone who was a prostitute, or someone who was otherwise unmarried, unengaged. And wow. That was frowned upon, but it was permitted under the law. And in fact, there was a test that was only applied to women in the book of Numbers about whether or not she'd committed adultery. So adultery really had to do with the violation of your male neighbor's rights, because it was theft of your male neighbor's property. All right. So it's an interesting, we think of adultery as any sort of cheating, infidelity. There, it had a bit of a edge to it that we're not super comfortable with, and it certainly introduced a double standard that we're going to come around at later. And there are reasons why this was written into the law, and there were provisions about if you did have sexual relations with a virgin, you were obligated to marry and provide for them. I mean, there were other things going on, but just the classic understanding of adultery was primarily focused on the violation of the husband or the betrothed's rights and property. And so anyway, that's
gross.
That's wonderful. So he quotes obviously one of the 10 Commandments. It's certainly heavy. But then he says, "But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart." Now, the light command here is actually another of the 10 Commandments, the prohibition against coveting. Coveting's tough to measure unless you act on it. So it was considered one of the lighter of the 10 Commandments by some, because you couldn't really measure it. Murder, obviously you could tell. Violating the Sabbath, you could tell. Coveting your neighbor's wife or property, it was a different thing. And so because Jesus is using the classic understanding of adultery as theft, he equates it to the idea of coveting. And when Jesus is quoting here, he's quoting from the Greek version of the Hebrew Bible called the Septuagint. And the word for covet in the commandment, "You shall not covet," is the same word he uses here for lust. So you shall not covet your neighbor's wife. He says, in essence, he says, you shall not commit adultery, but I tell you, anyone who looks at a woman in order to covet her has committed adultery in his heart. So we think of lust as sexual desire. Jesus is talking about lust in a slightly different way. It's the act of coveting something that's forbidden to you. It's not just desiring it, but it's pursuing it. It's acting upon it. So it's not just sexual desire, as we'll see. Jesus doesn't condemn sexual desire, but it's the orientating of the will towards acting upon something and pursuing it when it's forbidden to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to get to that in a second. And the word lust here, that is also translated covet, is it's not an exclusively negative word. It often refers to strong desire. Jesus will even use this word when he talks about, like, I have wanted to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. He uses that same Greek word. And it's used other places in the New Testament. So
he uses the word for lust in the place of wanting to dine with. Is that what you were?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it's not just a negative. So
Right.
so we hear the word lust in English and we think sex. Lust is strong desire, and in Jesus's day seemed to be framed around coveting, which was not just desiring someone, but turning your will so that you began to act on that desire. Even if you didn't fulfill the desire all the way, it's as if you'd committed it in your heart because you'd already given your heart permission to pursue it.
Are the things like the 7 deadly sins or whatever, like when lust, I think that a lot of in youth group, that's a big, bold 4-letter word that's posted on the wall of like,
yes,
there's all these little
not.
demons, and there's there's the lust demon that's coming to entice you.
Yes.
Is that, do you know, I'm taking you off your notes. We're going.
Well, that's all right. I'm
weeds
actually
a little
on
bit.
notes because this is so tricky and it's easy to be misunderstood. Tell you what.
Is it that the same thing with that? Is that more the coveting? Do you know if that translates?
Well, I think I'm going to answer that in like another section.
All right, stay tuned.
So this is really confusing because
Yes.
Our typical understanding of lust as a sexual desire or gazing upon someone in order to sexually desire them. That isn't exactly what the text seems to be talking about. There's this orienting that's over and above the desiring of the will. It's a will word. It's not a desire word. And it's like theft. It's like, when have you committed theft? Is it at the point you wanted to commit theft, or when you
Right.
reached out, when you began to reach out.
Yeah.
And because Jesus is not saying that adultery in the heart and real adultery are the same thing. He's not saying that even remotely. Because I've also heard that, like, well, if I've committed adultery in the heart, might as well enjoy the sex. And,
Yeah.
right? That is so not what he's doing. So I'm
Well,
trying.
just the heaviness of saying that that committing it in your mind or your heart is the same as, I mean, that's what I grew up under.
Yeah, and that's not what he's saying at all.
Right.
The best way I can try to describe it is that lusting and coveting are action words. They're not.
Right.
Now that includes attitudinal words, right? So if I am looking at someone in order to covet them,
Yeah.
that's what Jesus is ruling out.
Yeah.
But it's a will word. It's not just being attracted to somebody. It's not just having sexual feelings for somebody who's not your spouse. It's not being horny. I mean that.
Right.
None of that. But I grew up, lusting was any sexual thoughts about anybody.
Yeah.
And that's just not that's not what he's talking about here. All right? So, because Jesus is tying coveting into adultery, what he's doing, and it's so freaking brilliant, is he's removing the double standard. So
from the previous understanding
of adultery.
Genius.
See, this is what he's doing. So he doesn't care if it's your neighbor's property, right? You're sinning against her.
Yeah.
By coveting her. Right? So he's going after that double standard that existed in the previous understanding, which is freaking awesome, and we're going to talk more about that. All right. So
Stay tuned.
Yes, and I got to be honest. I mean, this stuff, I spent, I don't know, 30, 40 hours on this. I mean, there's so much debate here, and the words are super precise, and some of them are kind of muddy, and others are really precise. And so it's just it's so misunderstood in Christian culture. And yet, I kind of know when I'm coveting my neighbor's wife. Or, my neighbor's anything, right? I mean, it's kind of like the definition of pornography, right? I can't define it, but I know it when I see it. And that was the Supreme Court's definition back in the day. And so there's a sense in which there's a whole segment of our male and female listenership that can be set free from the idea that horniness, and I use that crass word because because that's the word we've chosen instead of desire. My kids don't talk about it in terms of desire. They talk about it this way, and
Right.
And so we're not talking about that general state of being human where physiological things happen and biochemical things happen because we're made to be attracted and to have feelings of romance and to be sexual towards each other, right? That's not what we're talking about.
Right.
But it's that next step of turning my will and beginning to act. That's the issue.
Yeah.
Now that act could be continued gazing,
Right.
right? That act could be text messaging. That act could be, seemingly innocent flirtation. Right? It's the justification that I've used of just, I'm not having an affair, so it's okay.
Right.
Jesus is ruling all of that out, and he's putting the onus on the men to do this. And that has massive ramifications in a second. Now, so when he says, anyone who looks at a woman lustfully, again, this is covet language. So he's saying the light and the heavy commands here, just like he did with anger and murder, right? It's not the same to be angry and to murder, vastly different consequences. But the heart posture where murder begins is anger. And where adultery begins is coveting. That's the idea. So Jesus assumes the presence of sexual desire here and doesn't condemn it. It's the will, it's the act of the will upon that desire that is what is forbidden. And and then he says this, if your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out.
Right.
and throw it away. It's better for you to lose one part of your body than your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to stumble, cut it off, throw it away. It's better for you to lose one part of your body than your whole body to go to hell. Now, Jesus is Jewish, and this is what rabbis did. They exaggerated to make a point. So I pulled up another one of these sayings, just later, codified in the Mishnah, and this is just how you would talk to make a point, right? So here's one about you should always read Torah at mealtime. All right. So the point is read Torah at mealtime. Here's the pithy saying. When three eat at one table, and words of Torah are not spoken there, it is as if they ate at the altars of the dead, right? Nothing more unclean than that. But when three eat at one table and bring up words of Torah, it's as if they ate from the table of God. Blessed be he. Right now, that's obviously exaggeration to make an effect.
Yeah.
Because Jesus has just said he's worried about adultery in where? In where?
Heart.
Right. And do cutting off body parts address adultery in the heart?
No.
Can you still covet and be blind? You actually can. Can you still covet and be handless? You actually can. Right?
Too many jokes involved in there, though.
And if Jesus were going to recommend cutting body parts off, there's one he missed that seems very important. And so this is exaggerated language to talk about the urgency, just like he did with murder, right? He did this with murder. Listen, if someone's angry with you, drop your freaking sacrifice in the temple, walk 80 miles round trip to go deal with it somewhere else. Right? This is what he's doing. He's saying this stuff is so urgent in my kingdom. You cannot just sit and abide by it. It will devour you. It will take over your life. You have to deal with it. And he's just saying, listen, if your computer causes you to stumble, throw it away. If your phone causes you to stumble, get rid of it. Right? Whatever action you have to take away what's causing you to stumble. And the word here for cause, the verb that's translated cause, is a verb that's also used of a trap that has bait in it. And when you grab the bait, it traps you. So if your right eye or right hand, now some think there's a reference to masturbation. I'm not so sure because of the parallelism between right eye, right hand. And the left hand was typically used for more hygienic issues. And the right stood for dominant. So if even your best eye and best hand cause you to sin, get rid of them. I think that's the point he's making there, although some people think he's making a masturbation reference there. I don't know. He may be. And I've read enough scholars that hint at that it's certainly a possibility. I see him as just doing parallelism.
Yeah.
All right. Does this make sense so far?
Yes.
Okay.
This is good. I think this is very clarifying.
I hope so. It feels like I'm not clear, but if you say I am, hallelujah.
Oh, I think the example you gave of theft for me, that was very helpful.
Well, we know, Tim, that's been a struggle in your life.
It has been.
And taking
I want
those
nice things.
Yes.
But I also want my dollar bills.
Listen, more money, more problems. Okay, that's the truth. All right, so, and I don't know. We're obviously goofy because this hits so close to home. And so I want to look at three implications of the text, and there are a couple that are obvious, and then one I think's really important for our day. One, of course, is that, and this I guess needs to be said over and over and over again. Sexuality is a gift. It was not meant to be a curse. And we experience it as a curse because it's fallen twisted and it's become expressed in power differentials and abuse, and it's awful the way we consume and treat each other as objects. So it is some of the worst that human beings do. But the Bible doesn't begin with a big no to sex. It begins with a big yeah. Be fruitful and multiply. Of all the ways that God could have had human beings pass on their DNA, he chose one that was really fun and mysterious. And contrary to popular belief, Jesus, Paul, and the scriptures have the highest view of sex you could have. It's not just DNA replication. It's not just animal instinct. It is the commingling of souls. It is attachment. It is vulnerability. It is intimacy. It is the pleasuring of another in service to another. It is fidelity. And I mean, it's the most beautiful things that human beings can be for each other. But as a result, it's also the worst. And so there is in the scriptures a deep, deep commitment to the goodness of sexuality. And here, when Jesus talks about it most clearly, he doesn't condemn sexuality or sexual desire. He doesn't. That's not what he's condemning even remotely. So sexual thoughts, romantic feelings, ooh, I wonder what it would be like, those sorts of things, yes, they can veer into coveting, of course. But those things that just sort of fly our way and the bodily reactions that accompany them, my goodness, that is not bad. In fact, Paul is so realistic. He's like, hey, married folks, please have sex regularly so that you're not too frisky. That's the Mike Erre translation, right? I mean, they're very realistic about this. And of course, what religious people have done is they've weaponized these texts to suppress women. And we'll talk about that in a second. Now, for single people, the great news is all that sexual energy there's no condemnation for that. I mean, I have a 17-year-old boy, a 15-year-old girl, and man, they are brimming with romance and relationships and what's going on and how's this work. And I mean, that's awesome, right? That's not shameful stuff. Seth is the best embodiment of this because Seth has no idea he should not be just walking around naked all the time. It's like, this is part of the thing, right? This is a part of my body. So what's the problem? So there is not this condemnation in single people for wanting sex, feeling like they need to have sex. I mean, all of those sorts of things. There's not a condemnation in married people for having that be an important part of your life and working at that and having a discipline towards that. And so you have to start for me anyway, you have to start any talk of the Bible with this overcorrective towards, man, this is a gift. I mean, that it involves all of our senses, that we escape out of ourselves into another. I mean, it's magnificent and it's mysterious and it's beautiful. And it's also the ugliest stuff that we do to each other. Yeah. And so, of course, Jesus comes in and talks against the commodification and objectification of people towards each other, of course, right? And it's not surprising then that the scriptures warn us rightly about the power of lust when it's unchecked. There is this really, and this, man, brothers and sisters who are listening, I have lived this. What Paul's going to say here, I have lived this, and I can attest to the truth of all of it. Paul in Ephesians is speaking of what happens when desire, but he uses words that seem to say he's indicating sexual desire specifically. He's talking about the people that did not know God. He says they are darkened in their understanding and are separated from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them due to the hardening of their hearts. Now, then he describes how their hearts become hardened. Oh, and my friends, I have lived this and I hate it. But he says first, having lost all sensitivity, they have given themselves over to sensuality. So sensitivity is a super important word. Having lost sensitivity is a combination of a couple words that has to do with the condition of being void or past feeling. Void of or past feeling. So, as someone who's been who is a bit of a glutton when it comes to food, there have been times when I'm not enjoying the meal, right? I'm not sitting and enjoying how the food tastes. Right. I'm eating to comfort myself or to celebrate. Right. Or the alcoholic who may have loved the taste of liquor once, but now it's just a means to an end. When you get there, you've lost all sensitivity. When it takes a greater and greater hit to get you back, not even to where you started, but just almost close, right? That's what it means to having lost all sensitivity. You just no longer enjoy it. And because of that, Paul says, having lost sensitivity, you give yourself over to sensuality. Now, sensuality here is the absence of restraint, and it's insatiable desire. And it's the idea that once lust hollows you out, you have to pursue it now in ways that aren't that are different, that are odd, weird, not the norm, because you've lost sensitivity to what's normal. So the classic example is Hugh Hefner. Hugh Hefner is this Playboy, author of Playboy magazine and this representative of the heterosexual male straight ideal. And there was this interview that came out in the 80s or 90s, and that it was one of his girlfriends saying, that he can no longer enjoy heterosexual sex. He's been hollowed out by it and has to watch, he has to masturbate to gay porn. And I thought, now, again, I don't know if that's true or not, but if it is, what an example of someone hollowing themselves out. Having lost all sensitivity, they've now been given over to sensuality. Does that make sense? That now you don't even enjoy the thing that started this. Like you have to turn elsewhere. And then, so as to indulge, he says, every kind of impurity, and they are full of greed. Now, greed here isn't money. Greed is the insatiable desire for more. So here's the picture, right? And for those of us men and women who are honest, whether it's drugs or whether it's food or whether it's sex or whether it's porn or whether it's whatever, we know this. We can call it the law of diminishing returns. There is a hardness of heart that takes place incrementally as you lose the ability to enjoy the gift. And as you lose that ability, you are given over then to having to try more and more of it, or different kinds of it, to try to bring that sensitivity back. And so you literally become just given over and full, Paul says, of greed, of insatiable desire. It's like the idea in Lion, I think it's the Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, right? Of there's this little boy, Edmund, who gets, with his brother and his sisters, gets transported in this magical land of Narnia. And Edmund gets deceived by a white witch who uses his hunger. Edmund was hungry, he's a little boy, he's hungry, and gives him a candy called Turkish Delight. And she bewitches it so that the more he eats, the hungrier he gets. And the more he eats of it, the less anything healthy sounds.
Right.
That is what Paul's talking about. It's not just what lust does in robbing the other person of their dignity, but it's where it ends up in the absolute callousness of heart that requires increasing amounts to even feel an eighth, a tenth, a 16th of what we felt the first time.
Yeah, it's that change from desire to need.
Yes.
And need is something different. I can't remember who the guest was. I think it was when we had Celeste Holbrook on.
Oh,
which
yes,
ruffled some feathers, but I think she was the one that was talking about how just really differentiating what that idea of need means and how that's not I need oxygen to breathe. I need food, sustenance, or I will perish. But I think that idea, like you're talking about how there's this desire of something that that has all those different facets to it, but it starts to change into this thing that kind of poisons because it becomes a degraded need that just continually drops and drops and drops and drops.
That's right. And to the point
and that makes sense. The more hardened you get, the more that need changes.
That's right. I mean, it's like I remember the first time I held my wife's hand.
Right.
You know, it was like electricity and butterflies.
Yes.
And now it's different. And if you have a very thin definition of love, then you need to go find that butterfly somewhere else, right after you've been married for a while. Thick definition of love is, I don't get the same butterflies. I have something much more profound when I hold my wife's hand.
Yeah,
you know
that
what
has
I mean?
Evolved and grown rather than degraded into a need.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's a really important conversation because I think that people really in our circles, struggle with the doom and gloom that is around lust when you are single or a high school kid, when all your hormones are going bananas and they're just like, no, this is wrong to feel this way. And then it's hard to differentiate that stuff when you get married, and it's like it's a red light and then it's a green light and you're just like, wait a second, what?
I am shocked at the number of people over the years, as I've done weddings and some marriage counseling, whatever, who come from very conservative Christian backgrounds who have a hard time sexually because they were told it was bad.
Yes, you can't just turn off that shame button
because
you put a ring on someone's finger.
Yes. And it's, I mean, boy, that's a whole separate gig right there. The perils of purity culture.
But it's so rooted in this stuff, this misunderstanding of just of desire. Like, it's so demonized in our circles that
totally. So let's say I come home, I'm hungry, I'm starving, and my neighbor is barbecuing. Right? Is it wrong to go, oh my goodness, that smells incredible, and your mouth starts watering, and physiologically your body prepares itself to eat? Is that wrong? Of course not. No, it's not wrong. What would be wrong is if you go grab your .22 or whatever kind of gun, that's the only one I can think of, and, steal their barbecue at gunpoint, right? Then we've crossed over. But no. So, although...
Or distract them and steal the meat.
I have to speak against this, though. I've heard some Christian men say this about their wives, and this is not what we're saying. Hey, you can look at any menu as long as you eat at home. So the idea is, sexual desire is fine, so I can just go around and cultivate sexual desire as long as I have sex with my wife. Right? Is that the righteousness Jesus is talking about here? Not even remotely. So on the one hand, we are warring against the shame that has been given to us in Christian circles, that sexuality is bad and naughty and dirty and shameful. But on the other hand, we're also warring against the cavalier, casual, it's no big thing attitude, because that's not true either. Something so capable of destruction and so capable of beauty, right? And the scriptures just talk, all the scriptures do is talk about respecting its power. Right. It's one of the most powerful forces in the universe.
Yeah.
All right, now let's talk about one final implication. So first implication, sexual desire is good. Second implication, lust leads to horrible places. I've tasted those personally. And Paul's description is the best description I've ever heard of anything anywhere about what that feels like. But then there's a third thing here. Jesus, who is Jesus talking to? Right? We've covered this.
He's that group.
He's talking to the big group. Yeah. And do you think there were women in that group?
Yes.
Yes, I think so too. So why does he just talk about the dudes? Doesn't he know that women lust also? Is Jesus, is Jesus just dumb in his human form that he's like, oh yeah, this is a guy issue? No, come on. But Tim Mackey made this point, and I thought it was brilliant. Has there been, just look at male, female for a second. Just let's go binary for a second and say, okay, is there one gender that has weaponized sex and used it as a means to violate, subjugate, and oppress the other gender?
For all of time.
Yes. It seems like there's one gender that's specifically guilty of that.
Right.
And so Jesus here isn't just giving individual moral instructions, right? He's talking about the kind of righteousness that characterizes his kingdom, and his kingdom, therefore, has to be a place where women are safe. He removes the double standard, and he simply locates it on the man. All this modesty crap, and women shaming, right? That started early.
Yeah.
That was even in some Jewish thought. There's one story. Rabbi Yosei, looks like Jose, Yosei, let's call him. This is told in a Babylonian Talmud. This rabbi had a beautiful daughter, and one day he caught a man digging or drilling a hole in the fence to catch a glimpse of his beautiful daughter. When the rabbi challenged the intruder said, "Master, if I'm not worthy enough to marry her, may I not at least be worthy to catch a glimpse of her?" The rabbi then turned to his daughter and exclaimed, "You are the source of trouble to mankind. Wow. Return to the dust so that men may not sin because of you." Now, this attitude got picked up, obviously, by early Christian writers. So here is Tertullian, one of the early church fathers, and it's in a tractate called On the Apparel of Women. He insisted that even natural beauty ought to be obliterated by concealment and neglect, since it is dangerous to those who look at it. Right? Later on, in some of the rabbinic writings, don't talk to womankind. They should cover themselves. There were all these rules. Then what the Pharisees did is some of them were called bleeding Pharisees because they would be so meticulous about never looking at a woman that they would run themselves into walls by not looking, right? And so they would bleed from their head as a badge of honor. This is twisted.
Yeah.
And so why does Jesus talk to the men? It's not because he's stupid and he doesn't know women struggle too. It's because his kingdom, if it's going to be full of the poor in spirit and the brokenhearted and the mourning and the meek, has to be safe for women. Yeah. Has to be safe from that objectifying gaze. Has to be safe from the coveting and the abuse of power.
Yeah. And
so you have this blowing up of this of one of the hangovers of purity culture, this modesty movement. And I think, even as we raise a daughter, how you dress does say something about you. Fine. But my daughter was telling me, she's on her Zoom class, and her class was having a discussion about a story where a woman was going to cheat on her husband and walked into a bad part of town to do it and got killed. And the question was, did she deserve it?
Jeez.
And there were a sizable number of people that were saying yes, that because she was going to cheat, she deserved what came her way. Now, if she was going to get groceries, she didn't deserve it. My sweet daughter chimes in and says, okay, so how about rape? Let's say I'm drunk at a party and I'm dressed provocatively. Now, she didn't say it this way, but this is what she was saying. Do I deserve it? And some of the boys were saying yes.
Wow.
The kingdom of God is to be a place where the most immoral, naked, intoxicated person in the history of the world could be putting the moves on every soul, and out of respect, kindness, gentleness, and dignity, right? This person will be treated and kept safe.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's what we're talking about. So when Jesus addresses the men, right? It's not just because lust is a male issue. It's because the kingdom has to be safe for women.
Yeah.
And there is a double standard that has always existed, that somehow the woman is the temptress and the man just isn't responsible.
Yep.
And I love that Jesus speaks against that. Nope, absolutely not. The kingdom of God is a place where you should be able, I'm sorry I'm graphic in this, but I can't think of a different way to say it. I mean, that you should be able to be passed out naked in front of whoever and not gazed at, stared at, mocked, abused, touched, right? But rather covered, protected, blessed.
Yeah. Right?
Now,
Yeah.
who among the dudes in the kingdom can just simply say, hey, oh yeah, we got all that figured out? No, right? That's where Jesus is going to talk about our personal sin is a plank and everyone else's sin is a speck of dust, right? So I want to beat up on those guys that think it's the girl's fault, and I do oppose them and will always. But this text just drives me back to me.
Right.
And the recognition that this has been a narcotic as far as I can remember. And there is simply, and the more sexual abuse is put on display in the church, in the ways that youth pastors and others, it's no wonder the church has nothing to say about sexuality other than don't.
Right.
Right? Because what would we point to? What would we point to?
Yeah.
You know, as an example, as a way we've blessed the world in our understanding of sexuality. I mean, there's just nothing except repentance.
Yeah.
You know, confession.
Yeah, I feel like this idea covers a multitude of topics that we don't have time to get into, but the inability to admit that the structures that have been built and the way that we've been doing things for a long time have been oppressive to certain demographics of people, and to say, I realize that, and now we're gonna work on shifting gears to make it not that way anymore. Mm-hmm. But instead, we just try to push things out of sight or sweep them under the rug or demonize them so much more in a different way that people are too afraid to even confront it. I know it's very vague, but I think there's a lot of issues that are happening right now that in this country that we're trying to figure out. Yeah, there's a history where we've kind of done things in a terrible way, and now it's time to kind of repent of that and reconcile and to become opposite of that. Yeah. And you see that with the church a lot with the sex stuff. It's just... Yep. Because it's like you pivot from fear of desire and judgment and hell and all this stuff for finding a girl attractive or whatever, or acting upon it, to coming to the other side of the fence where you're so filled with shame that you can't deal with it or reconcile it. So it's like these two really extreme things that you teeter-totter on, of like, I'm too afraid, and I shouldn't even talk about it, and I won't talk openly about it, to I have done things And now I feel so full of shame that I can't even come back over here to have a healthy relationship. And
Right.
we've set up so many shackles for people sexually. It's bananas.
Yep.
And it's a conversation I still have I'm in my 40s, and it's still a conversation I have with men all the time that just cannot find peace in this.
Yeah.
You know, I also think it's important to note, and I don't know if someone needs to hear this or not, but that we are not defined by our shame. It doesn't have to have the last word, as heavy as that may feel, you know?
Yeah.
I'm curious too with the, and I don't know, we probably don't have time for this either, but in this idea of a skewed world, or in Mackey's words, the suboptimal lens that God is working through, is this kind of stuff just tarnished a little bit? Like, is there a pure version of it, or is it just always that we are working to try to not have... Does that make sense? Like, is there a version of any of this stuff? Or is it just that Jesus is like, hey guys, you're going to have to work at this at the heart level, anger, lust, coveting. You're going to have to work at this stuff constantly because it's too easy to slip off of either side. Does that make sense? Or is it just like, you know, there's no pure version of life? Is that accurate in the world that we're in?
That's a great question. You know, I don't know. My temptation is to think that even as Jesus redeems, we're still in the shadowlands, to use C.S. Lewis's, picture.
Yeah.
And so that even redeemed sexuality isn't without its foibles and its continued struggles. And I think that's the big lie, one of the big lies that maybe the church has put out there, is that, give your life to Jesus, follow his way of sexuality, and then bam, it's going to be awesome.
Which is the opposite of what Jesus said.
Yep. It's
going to be a little difficult.
Yeah. And so, I don't know, man. All I know is that I am healthier than I've been, but that's only because I have people around me that I can now come out of the shadows to. And I went to this place in Tennessee in January. I think we've talked about it here. And I was with 6 other men. And when we were together for 6.5 days. And initially it was the most intimidating thing I've ever done. And I was terrified. And I thought I didn't belong, because what I had done didn't feel as big as, some of the things that were going on in the group. And once I got past that sort of self-righteousness, what happened was the kind of safety and confession I have never in my life experienced. And it wasn't a weak sort of like, oh yeah, this is all okay. It was like calling each other out, but it was all with all of our crap on the table.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was in 6.5 days. It was one of the most magnificent things I've ever experienced. And it's not magic, but I've just never been anywhere where that, and again, that's pride, because I no doubt could benefit from 12-step groups, but I'd never tasted anything like that. Healing, my friends, does not come from feeling more shame, and healing does not come from trying harder. I did all of that, and it's not quite how it works. And I hesitate to talk too much, just because I have such a long way to go as a guy trying to walk better. And this is where, I lament not having a female voice too, because I would imagine, I would know that the female perspective on this is so different from purity culture. and modesty culture and all those sorts of things. But I think there is something fitting about, because Jesus addressed it to dudes, just two dudes sitting in the shit of it going, yeah, I don't want to be like this. We don't want to be like this.
And then actively taking a role and not being like this. And not being magic, that there is an active
that's right
response and role. Even in just like, if you are someone who's like, you know, bound by shame or bound by something, just just how I'm such an extreme introvert, and I've learned how much I need community and fellowship. And it has seemed counter to my personality, where I'm like, no, I will do the best. I'm at my best when I'm by myself, and I have learned that is not accurate at all. Not true at all. There's a lot of power in community and fellowship, and being active and struggling together, and being active and pursuing healing together, and being active and pursuing truth and realness and who Jesus is and what Jesus is trying to do. And there's a lot of power in community and fellowship, and in confession with those people, and repenting with those people, and living life with people.
So there's hope. Absolutely.
There's always hope.
And there's progress.
I said in our meeting yesterday, we had a board meet, or I can't remember what it was, but I was teaching on Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech in my class on Tuesday. And it's just such a such a beautiful speech. And almost the entire thing is just a daisy chain of metaphors. It's just, from an English perspective, it's just a beautiful piece of work. But there's that one, he emphasizes mountains a lot and uses scripture to do that. But there's a section where he talks about like digging out a stone of hope from the mountain of despair. And it's such a powerful image that it's been hanging on me for the last week. But I think there's a lot to that. There's always hope, but sometimes it takes a little bit of digging. Yeah.
Amen to that. And then for those of us who insist on speaking what Jesus asks of his followers as if that were God's will for everybody, and seeking to press that through legislation and other means, I think it'd be good if a lot of us just shut our mouth and cleaned our own house and did the hard work, and then maybe we can help people with specs. But my goodness, there's been no area except maybe money and power where we have polluted the witness of Jesus more, as a collective, not everybody and not all the churches. But man, there's a hangover from this stuff that's brutal right now.
Yes. So
anyway, and we're not perfect and we don't know all of our crap. So be gentle with us. Anyway, friends, we're just going to end it here. So God bless you. And I don't even know what to say. I'm sorry. Anyway, till next time, my brothers and sisters. See ya.
Thank you for listening to this conversation. The Vox Podcast is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that is supported by listeners like yourself. If you'd like to partner with us, you can do so at patreon.com/Vox Podcast. You can also engage with the hosts on social media at facebook.com/Vox Podcast, on Instagram at Vox Podcast, and on Twitter at Mike Erre. Thank you for walking this road with us.